Answering another interesting question from one of our subscribers. If you guys have questions for the Q&A, leave it in the comment down below. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, welcome back to MixBest TV. Hope you're having a great day. Before we start, please check the info box down below on my mixing courses of Pro Mix Academy, free plugins, special discounts and offers. And of course, if you want to learn how to mix and master professionally, click the join button down here. Become a MixBest TV member, access the already big and always growing library of full mixing courses on so many different genres, start to finish mastering courses, special videos and a lot more. And if the videos on MixBest TV are helping you, please consider using the new feature down here, the super thanks, and you support the channel. Let's get to the video. Soteris Giatru, I hope I'm not butchering your name. Hello David, when you have a track that it has almost perfect crest factor, almost no spikes, all due to compression and saturation sounding good of course, how you approach limiting in order to reach a desired level? I notice when I try to push a track like this in level, the limiter is constantly lit and it reduces also the RMS part of the track due to that specific envelope. How do you approach something like this? Using DS1 MK3, thanks in advance. Okay, so different points to unfold here. The first one, when you have a track that it has almost perfect crest factor, almost no spikes at all due to compression and saturation. This is the first false premise in this case. There's no such a thing as perfect crest factor, right? If anything, we could call it optimal crest factor, but it's not just a matter of semantic. The point is a mix that has no spikes, so that doesn't have peaks that visually they come outside of the bulk of the song. We talked about this a lot of times, my famous loudness video on crest factor. It doesn't make the mix perfect. It doesn't make the crest factor perfect because there's no such a thing. And I want to add, when our friend says sounding good, of course, that's a challenge because I can promise you a mix that visually, or even if you measure the nominal level, right, doesn't have spikes, peaks, most likely will not sound that good. Because of course, like our friend says, you do that basically through compression and saturation. I mean, I taught this to you guys, but I never said kill all your peaks before going to master, okay? What I said is have a good optimal crest factor where you don't have spikes that exceed the bulk of your track that are like 12 dB of swing. Otherwise, of course, when you go to mastering, the limiter is gonna work so much that it will destroy your peaks and make the track sounds just bad. The goal is to have those peaks and to perceive the dynamic and to perceive those trends and to be very punchy. Basically, we have to give the listener the illusion that those peaks are taller than they actually are. I taught this to everybody in that video and the following ones, how we use saturation and compression to enhance the perceived loudness and the punchiness when possible. So we give the impression that those spikes are punchier and so taller, louder, higher in level than what they actually are. And I can promise you it's very hard, borderline impossible, to have a mix, not a master, a mix that is basically a flat line, because that's the only case in which the limiter would react and act the way it's described in the second part of the comment, and it's still punchy and alive. You want those peaks because that's the liveliness of your mix, okay? So never aim for your mix to look like that. But let's go to the second part and let's assume that you'd somehow end up with an amazing mix that does sound punchy and alive and dynamic, and it hits you hard and it sounds open, and you have a crest factor that doesn't even exceed 1 dB, it's like below 1 dB. In this case, first of all, your mix should have a competitive level as is. If you normalize it at minus 0.1, you're probably gonna be around minus 10 LUFS, minus 9 LUFS, depending on how harmonically rich the mix is, the bass content, and again, what a meter and number say can be very different from how we perceive a mix, how loud we perceive a mix, okay? So if your mix is like that, you're probably at least a minus 12 LUFS, which is a viable commercial level already. Not all songs sounds good at minus 5, okay? Most songs don't, but even if you are a minus 12 with that kind of a mix, and you wanna get to minus 10 or minus 9 or even minus 8, with probably 1.5 dB combined between saturation and limiting on your mix as a mastering process to get into very loud territory. And if the mix sound good to begin with, then you don't care if the limiter is quote unquote constantly lit, because that's normal. Because at the end of the day, limiter work on an absolute threshold, right? Nominal level. That's how limiters, brick wall limiters work. So if you have half dB of crest factor, it's normal that if you even if you limit only 1 dB, it will be constantly lit, as opposed to, for example, a mix that is a little more dynamic, and you will see the limiter working only on the picks, right? That is normal. The question is, how does it sound? If it sounds good, then you don't worry. My guess is that probably this happened to you, or you did this, and this limiter, even if it's 1 dB, doesn't sound good, and either distort or suffocate the mix. Why? Because what we said at the beginning of the video, it's very, very unlikely to have a mix that looks like that and measure like that actually sound good, because there's only so much that you can do to contain those peaks nominally and still retain the punch. After a while, not only you have limited return, but you just lose it. You just lose the punch, lose the dynamic, lose the liveliness of it. That's why it's so difficult to mix, and that's why it's so difficult to do a master that is loud and clear and still punchy. Because yes, I gave you guys a great tool with that video. I taught you kind of a great secret, okay? Which, more than being a secret, it was very difficult, and I think nobody ever did it before me, to actually explain what was happening, okay? But that is just a tool. If you misuse it or you overuse it, you're not gonna have success. That's why I can give you the technique, the concept of it, and I'm not afraid to share that information. I wanna keep it for myself, because at the end of the day is how you use it. Is your ear, your brains, how well you know the tools that you have, the room that you have, the speakers that you have, and most important, the experience. So in this case, the scenario that was described in the comment is very, very unlikely to happen. A mix that looks and measures like that most likely will not sound that great. And even if it sounds okay that way, you probably reached its full potential, its full loudness potential in the mix already, by saturating every single track and every single group and limiting a little bit, and that you can reach the full potential that way. The problem is, if you do it that way and you overcook it, you end up with a track that is loud enough but not loud enough to compete, and you piled up on all those passages enough distortion, and you kind of deteriorated the transient enough for them to not be able to take any more abuse, even that 1 dB of limiting at the end, okay? So like I said before, I gave you that great tool for you to understand the concept and experiment with it. If you think that that's the only secret to have a loud master, this is not the only one. There's a lot more that goes into creating a potentially loud mix that still sounds good, and then go into mastering and make a loud master that sound clear and good, okay? I hope this answered the question. I hope this video was useful for everybody. If you liked it, please consider to use the new feature, the super thanks, right here, and support the channel. If you have questions about this or for the Q&A, leave it in the comment down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up.